Hello everybody, cheers, and as you can see, it's the festive season, so Merry Christmas forthcoming, and welcome to the holiday version of the Survivorman Bigfoot Director's Commentary. This is not the last one yet. I think there's one or two more yet to do. Getting close to the end though, and I'm excited to get into this for you. This is the one down, I believe this is the one I'll be watching, this down in Texas. And like I've said for all of the Survivorman commentaries, you know, it really, truly has been years since I've seen this. So bear with me when I sort of realize things while you and I are both watching this and I go, oh, I forgot this happened. And a lot of you were pretty intrigued with the last director's commentary I did when I was in the Smoky Mountains of Tennessee. And before I begin, if you're watching this before January 4th of 2025, then you have an opportunity to help me make The Question of Bigfoot, my new Bigfoot Sasquatch documentary film. Kickstarter.com, you search for The Question of Bigfoot, it'll come up, and all kinds of rewards there that you can choose from $20 on up to big ticket items such as an expedition out in the field with me. Luke, show them what we got.
This was scary, exhilarating, and makes you doubt everything you ever learned that's real and unreal.
Back in 2014, I began work on a 10-part documentary series on the subject of Bigfoot. It took me places I did not expect to go, and it gave me a perspective I did not expect to have. Well, it's been 10 years, and a lot of questions still remain. Join me and help me to answer the litany of questions hanging over the phenomenon known as Bigfoot.
Walking up, I could see that there was something there. As I got closer, it stood up.
I know there's something there. I'm a lot more leery when I go out. I mean, really leery.
And I seen this humongous arm reach right in.
One of the dogs got killed, twisted, and tore in two.
What the heck have I heard when I've been out in the wilderness on so many different occasions? When I want answers, I go after them.
My new documentary film, The Question of Bigfoot, will attempt to answer all of the skeptics' burning questions. Why don't we see one on a trail cam? Where are the bones? Have they ever been hit by a car? Why haven't we captured one? Is there enough room out there in the wilderness for them to exist? Are they real or are they not? I can't do this without you. So take a look at all of the rewards within this Kickstarter campaign and help me to produce The Question of Bigfoot. Pretty cool, eh? So please join me. Even if you got $1, you know, just I want you to come along for the ride. So created those rewards. There's some stretch goals, as they call them on Kickstarter, that I'll be adding. But anyway, onwards and upwards, that will be the new film that I'll be working on through 2025. In addition, once again, as always, if we hit that $1 million, I wish it was $1 million, that 1 million subscriber mark on my YouTube channel, this YouTube channel, so please subscribe. If we hit there, then you will get another Survivorman. That's all the details I can give. I can promise something very, very special to do with it. But in the meantime, here we are, another director's commentary. And I think no time like the present. Let's just get watching, shall we? Here we go.
I've been digging deeper into the phenomenon known as Sasquatch, Bigfoot. I assumed I would spend most of my time in the western mountains, but the legend persists throughout the entire continent. And here, near the Texas-Louisiana border, I find that stories abound amongst those people who truly spend time out on the land.
Right now, you know, just before I let myself talk there, let me give you a little background here. this will come out in the new film, The Question of Bigfoot. The reality that during the year of making this documentary series, Survivorman Bigfoot, you can see all of the videos without me interrupting on this YouTube channel. It's a long story, but in the end, you start this journey, if you're interested in the phenomenon, looking for a big ape that's really smart. Hard stop. But along the way, a lot of stuff occurs to you, and things happen, and you see things and hear things and talk to further researchers in the field. And I was at a place both during, let's see if we're all still recording. We are. I was at a place during the filming of the Smoky Mountains, Tennessee director's commentary, which I just did, this commentary, where I was starting to go, whoa, wait a second here, in terms of how you're supposed to look for, research, connect with, document this phenomenon they call Bigfoot. Things were getting weird. That's the best way I can put it.
I'm in East Texas, forested area, private land. I was invited by my host, Jeff Stewart. He's had some strange encounters, including 2 face-to-face sightings. Now, mind you, his experiences stretch over the last 35 plus years. Sort of teaming up what I know about the wilderness and survival, combining that with the last number of months going in all sorts of different places with researchers, wilderness enthusiasts, and advocates for particular subject of study.
And that's something that's come up recently in some podcast interviews. You know, my place in all of this lies within my incredible comfort in the wilderness. And that's not braggadocio. I truly am very, very comfortable in the wilderness. A black belt in martial arts is comfortable going into the ring. You know, Jimmy Page is comfortable picking up his guitar. I'm comfortable walking off into the wilderness out there in the dark of night without feeling any fear. Not because I'm brave, I'm just very, very familiar. And so that puts me in a place, in a position where when it comes to some kind of strange phenomenon that's supposedly going on out there, of being able to say, okay, well, I'll go, you know, and I'll go alone. Perhaps that makes it more doable. I don't know. Maybe it doesn't matter at all. But that is the place that I occupied, at least when I started this journey, was that, hey, you don't want to go out and stay there by yourself because they say weird stuff goes on. I got no problem with it. I'll go do it.
I've got a good friend of mine, wilderness survival and tracking expert, Alan Beauchamp. I brought him down from Canada because I'm back once again in a hot spot, an area where hopefully the possibility exists that I can elicit an interaction with Bigfoot.
Wow. I did not know, I did not remember that I brought my good friend Alan Beauchamp, Beau as we call him, down on this journey. Totally forgot that. What a great man, great bushman, who's had his own experiences that I won't tell his story for him. When he's ready to tell him, he'll tell him. But I totally forgot that I'd done that I'd brought someone down who'd had an experience and was also as experienced as I was, and more so, in the wilderness. Sorry, as I said, I haven't seen this stuff in years.
With each new quest, I've acquired more gear. And here in Texas, I finally get a chance to put all the technical ideas into action.
What we have to leave out there is a number of different methods. So we've got 16 hidden cameras, let's call them, because I've got 4 fake birds, and each one of them has a camera in it. Deer urine, fox urine. It's a hollow shot tube, and it's very sharp. In the bottom, we'll have cotton batten, and then black tape holding that cotton batten, and that collects the DNA sample. Talk to me about placement now. Where do we want to start setting all of these things up?
So you see, this is what I was going for. I knew that tactically speaking, Alan Beauchamp would be able to help me with this kind of research, being very tactical about it, being very scientific about it, using technology. I know I would do that a lot different today, and I won't tell you how. You're going to have to join the Kickstarter campaign and watch the movie.
With everything that we're doing, if we cause a mass disturbance by this or a huge scent picture we left on the ground, what I'd like to do laterally, sporadically on the last ring around it, put them in spots where they're up against the side of a tree, where you've got maybe a microenvironment where there's a good breeze and stuff, so the scent is always going to blow by. I think the idea of the no zone, I think that's good. I think that'll work for us. I think we've offered a lot of high tech, a lot of low tech, all the while we're still in the open, with the fire being large. So
Okay.
We're right here.
The no zone is my idea, reasoning that if the species is highly intelligent, they may be able to recognize camera equipment, even camouflaged. So give them one small, safe area where there would be no cameras or hidden devices, a free space for anything that's curious about me.
What I've done is I've set a team in motion here. I've worked with Alan Beauchamp to determine what kind of stealth camera gear I want to work with, where I want to put it. The team is out just deploying everything on trees, water, and bushes all around, so I'm going to be part of that process. The good thing about this zone right here is my campsite is over there, so behind you. And with this trail that runs right underneath me here, right along through here, and the bush in behind, it's a good zone for something to come up. If it wanted to spy on me, this is a great spot for it to come and sneak up on me, be able to see me, but also be able to duck out of the way. So I think the way this is going to work is for me to set a camera up high in this case, shoot down, get a nice wide angle. So hopefully if something comes from in behind, lands in here, wants to get a look at me, camera will trigger and I'll get a shot of it, night or day.
And this follows along with my philosophy of, if you're going to try to invoke some kind of encounter out there, that the way to do it is actually to not be in a protected place, but be in the most vulnerable place possible. It goes against every fiber in my being to put myself in a vulnerable position out in the wilderness. Yet, that to me makes more sense. You're kind of, it's like the old philosophy of how handshakes started. You're showing you don't have a weapon in your hand. And by me placing myself in areas, and I've done that on some of the other shoots that we did, where I'm just very vulnerable to my surroundings, it makes a statement.
I'm putting out dozens of hidden cameras, DNA traps, and audio recorders.
I'm right on the trail here. Scuff this up a bit and bury the DNA trap. If something were to come along here and step on this, if it was large, they probably wouldn't even feel it. If there's some blood or sweat, it'll go into the cotton as well. It's on the other side of this. I can take this then, get it to a lab, and do a DNA test. So what I've got is I've got the camera up in the tree. It's looking down here at me and at this whole area. Not only perhaps might the apple bring something in, might step on the trap, but also it's on the runway and maybe just some natural travel, and it'll step on the trap. All right, so this time what I have is a motion-triggered light. Now, it's actually on at the moment because I triggered it. This is well within the zone of, I'll call it the zone of stealth, where we're putting all kinds of cameras and lights and DNA traps. And I'm going to set this guy up right here, so that if it goes off, I'll know something's really close. So, pretty straightforward. Light down here, and that will turn off, but then it will trigger on again if something moves within this area here. So the idea here is really quite simple. All around me is what I would call a solar circle, the campfire being in the center. 75% of it is set up in a sort of entrapment kind of way. But then over here, in behind me, all up in there, will be the no zone, the safe zone. I'll put no cameras, a tiny little bit of low tech with some thread and some gifting, but no cameras, nothing at all. So if I'm assuming, and this is what I think I want to do, is assume some sort of major intelligence, then this is like saying, okay, this area here, it's all yours to play with. If you want to sneak up on me, you've got this whole zone here, you can sneak up on me. One thing's for sure, if it makes use of it, then that speaks to me as well. That's a different kind of evidence. If everywhere else is left alone, and there's all kinds of big footprints by large human-type shaped feet in the area where there are no cameras and no traps, well, that's just something to consider, something to throw in the mix to try and figure out the pieces of this puzzle.
And it was very much a big puzzle to me at this point. And so my methodology was to try everything. Just throw it all against the wall and see what sticks.
For now, Still in the stealth mode. I'm gonna set up this baby.
I'll try anything to confuse and conquer whatever might be out here that's smart enough to recognize camera equipment. My next step will be to hike around the woods and let everything out here know that I'm here too.
I wish I still had all those decoys. I think I just left them and gave them to Jeff when we left. It was fun putting them together.
Anything, what I'm doing is I'm introducing the area to me. Sort of like, I'm here. Here's my scent. Here's my energy. I'm here. Anything that's here, that's paying attention, won't miss me.
The obvious problem, and maybe it's not obvious, I'm not sure, but for me, the obvious problem in all of this is to truly do this effectively would be to work with all of this equipment for like a year solid, just constantly, always having it going, running, always testing it. That's really the only way to do it. So, you know, was this a lost cause? Not necessarily, but it was definitely a bit of a shot in the dark.
I'll stick out like a sore thumb.
A 900-pound omnivore needs food, and there's plenty here to eat in the Texas woods.
Hogs are a big concern in these woods. They're thick in this forest, and they represent two things, a serious danger and serious prey. If there was something large and strong that wanted to eat a hog, he'd have his pickings in a place like this.
And that does speak to, you know, one of those questions, that question of, you know, was there enough food out there for something that big? Think about grizzly bears, massive. And there's enough food for them where they are. And, you know, and they're doing it by eating tons of berries, literally tons of berries, and catching elk or deer or moose, you know. So in the case of Sasquatch, you know, is there enough food? Well, absolutely there's enough food out there. I mean, you know, think of it, just Ontario, Canada alone, with the introduction of wild turkey and in many other places. They're just everywhere now. What did that do? Once the wild turkey took off, in Ontario, for example, the eastern cougar came back. It was still around, but in small numbers. Now, people are talking about them all the time. Well, they were feeding on these wild turkey that were reintroduced into Ontario or introduced into Ontario back whenever that was, 70s probably, 80s maybe. And so just follow the cycle. So something like a Sasquatch, take a look at Texas where there's however many 100,000 hogs or wild boars. Maybe that's easy pickings for a 1,000-pound intelligent ape.
So as you can see, there's more danger in these woods than just hogs and the rare cougar. He's definitely feeling threatened at the moment. Got that mouth wide open, opens, closes slowly. You can see the tail just do its little, it's almost like a fake rattle because I'm not hearing anything, but he's doing it. It shows you, he blends right in. You can step on one of these guys without even thinking about it, without even noticing. You're walking along, wearing thin, small shoes, thin socks or something like that. Bang. Now if I put my boot out towards him with the bottom of my boot, the closest thing to him, if he is going to strike, that's likely what he's going to strike at. Now, this is not something I say you should go and do. I'm just suggesting that if you're stuck in a situation like this, that the bottom of your boot is one of the safest places you have on your body. Big, thick rubber, and that's what the snake sees. But he also represents one other thing. He's a food source. For me right now, one club, bam, he's done, I've got dinner. Now, if there were predators out here that were as adept as I am, let's say, at swinging a stick, he's lunch.
And, you know, that's a good point to make. I will also say here, though, that a moment like that, as a filmmaker, represents what we would call in editing a beat. And sometimes, you know, in that situation, I probably said to Barry, the editor, I said, oh, by the way, I saw a cottonmouth snake. And I made a whole little thing about it, so I probably gave you a nice, tidy little story beat right there. And that's how you think of it in filmmaking. And so long as it's good, so long as it's something that, you know, that is has depth to it. So we're not talking about fluff here. But it can serve just like this for a lot of purposes. It can serves as a transition from one scene to another. It serves as a storyteller of how comfortable I am in the wilderness. I get to use it as a teaching beat to talk about how to deal with, if you're with a snake like that by putting your boot out, the sole of your boot out. And it also serves a storyline of, oh, and you know what? This actually is edible, and edible by me or a Bigfoot. So yeah, that happens. When you're filmmaking, you pay attention to those unexpected opportunities to film and capture another story beat that serves the film overall.
Several years ago, here in East Texas, Jeff Stewart came upon something eating a dead hog.
Walking up, I could see that there was something there. But I thought maybe it was several raccoons wadded up eating the entrails, the guts. As I got closer, probably maybe 20, 25 feet, it stood up. 15 years old, 1986. Camping trip down on the Sabine River in Panola County. And we'd caught a bunch of catfish, and we'd cleaned them, skinned them and everything out at this old hand pump well that we had down there on our place. Cooked our fish that night. We ate our fish. We're sitting around the campfire, and this immediately, put me on edge, because I'm not thinking Bigfoot or anything like that. I'm thinking this is somebody that's trying to scare me. This is somebody that's out to do no good to a 15-year-old kid out in the middle of the woods. It looked more primitive, and didn't say nothing. Just looked at me. And it takes 3 steps backwards, toe to heel. And which is very important, because people say, oh, maybe you saw a bear. Bears can't walk toe to heel. Bears can't walk backwards. If they do, it's very clumsy. It's very odd. This was fluid. This was smooth. And about 3 steps, it got into the edge of the woods, and it turned, and it walked away hurriedly on 2 legs. Never went down on all 4s. This thing's walking on 2 legs the whole time. I'll just never forget that smell, that sight, and that feeling that I had. This was scary, exhilarating, and makes you doubt everything you ever learned in your life that's real and unreal.
Real.
Now, sorry, my foot. I'm recovering from further toe surgery. Had a bone spur taken off my left big toe, and a couple of days ago I had a bone spur taken off my right big toe. And yes, I am wearing Christmas pajamas right now. You can't see it because it's out of frame. And it's hurting right now. Maybe this will help. Don't tell my wife. I said I wouldn't have any wine tonight because apparently I've been snoring a lot lately. But she's at book club, so what's a guy to do? Where was I? Right, Jeff Stewart. Love this man. And when you run into a situation like this, when you're talking with someone like Jeff, and he's a wonderful human being, and they're telling you their story, and they don't want anything out of this, I mean, it wasn't like I didn't pay him to be on this show or anything like that. He wasn't looking for any kind of notoriety. That is the case of 99% of people who have some kind of sighting story for you. Oftentimes, they just want to be left alone. They're reluctant to tell their story. And so, I had dinner and lunch and hung out with Jeff and got to know him. And there's just zero reason for me to feel that, at the very least, to feel that he's being dishonest. So we're knocking the honesty, we're checking that box right away. He's giving you an accurate representation of what he saw. There are other elements to determining what it was he might have seen, but I'm saying on the honesty report, all I can do is vouch for him. And as it is with most people, if you're aware, you can read people in life pretty well. I've made it a really strong habit and focus of mine to read people and to learn how to read people. And it's a wonderful human being telling me his story. End of story. I'm going to believe him.
Or unreal. Phenomenon or myth. Either way, you can't deny thousands of similar eyewitness accounts. Do we write them all off as lying and delusional? Or are we the ones in denial, judging from our couches?
I think I'm going to start here. I've put out a bit of a low-tech trap. I've got some small black thread. We're talking really fine thread here. It'll be really hard for me to find, actually. I'll string this across the trees, and what I'm going to do is 3 different lines of it, 3 different sections, so that if something is going to get through this area, they're going to actually have to kind of know the thread is there and duck around it. Well, that is anything that's either 7 feet tall, a bird flying through, a bat flying through, or a branch falling off a tree.
All tracking and evidence gathering begins with ruling out what it isn't before jumping to conclusions about what it might be. Scientific objectivity is not served by ignoring the question of Sasquatch, by ignoring the mounds of evidence that accumulate year in and year out. At some point, we've got to do the math and come up with some real answers.
And let's be clear here, I'm no scientist. And almost no one is a scientist who's researching Bigfoot. There are a couple, Dr. Jeff Meldrum, for example. So we'll call this, what do they call it, citizen science? For what it's worth.
Okay. This one's going to strike you as a little bit odd, but Bigfoot researchers and enthusiasts swear that this works. Now, you may have heard about gifting with food, say apples, and of course the claims and the stories that the apples are taken or the food is taken. So, taking a cue from some friends of mine, what I have here, some marbles. Put 10 marbles here, and one of the things I'm going to do here is actually arrange them in a bit of a purposeful design. What I want to do is make sure that I photograph them so I can come back and compare and say, yeah, nothing's moved at all, or this is really bizarre. Here's a spot here.
Now, I'll just say that is an interesting technique and one that a lot of people swear by. And I'll get into it more in the new film, The Question of Bigfoot, but I have tried that outside of making this series of my own accord and had some real interesting, strange results. And, could it have been crows or squirrels or what have you? Yes, and that's why I'm not sold on it. But it was still odd enough to make me question if it could even be a normal, creature from natural history that I'm aware of.
That is just nice, just perfect. Because it's hidden up in the woods here. 2, 4, 6, 8, 10.
Also, what I like about doing this, you heard the things, sort of the double-blind study that's done, where you don't even let the researchers know what's going on. I wanted to do a bunch of things like this without anybody with me, without Alan Beauchamp with me, without my film crew with me. I just wanted to do things on my own accord so that I knew I was the only one that knew where something was and how it was set up.
I'll get a record of it on film so I know what it looked like the way I left it. I can check later to see if it's changed.
If Sasquatch is only mythical, then shouldn't the description of it vary as widely as the hundreds of different names given it by the native cultures of this continent? The Comanche of Texas called them Piamupits, described as a terrifying cave-dwelling ogre that's very tall, hairy, foul-smelling, and has big feet.
In fact, a lot of Bigfoot researchers disagree on so many things, but one thing they don't disagree on is that the best thing to do is just to act natural. Be in the places that are reported to be Bigfoot hotspots, or seem like they should be. But when you're there, don't do anything special, because 90% of the interactions that take place happen by accident.
Which indicates that if there is such a species, it's up to them if they're going to interact with you. It's up to them if they're going to come around you. So that which makes it tough, because you can't just go out on a Friday night and invoke an encounter. You really got to put some time in.
Okay, so here's the deal. I'm to stay in this tent alone and quiet. The whole tent, I was cutting on the outside of the tent, so I've got holes all the way around so that I can see out of every side, but not much can see me. And wait and listen, pay attention to the forest around me, become very alert to all the nuances of my surroundings. My team is a few hundred yards away. They got a campfire going. Now they are taking the role of a normal bunch of campers, sitting around by the fire, talking, telling stories. But they're also monitoring a seismograph, that parabolic microphone, night vision cameras. And so they're taking care of all of the stealth equipment. It is raining. That changes things. Blankets a lot of sounds. But what it might do is give something, let's say, more guts, make something less timid. Might come in even closer.
Now, I'm going to interrupt myself there and say, no. I think, by and large, that people who are into this and research it and have any kind of encounter, almost all of them that I've ever talked to, and in my own experience as well, when it's raining, nothing happens. So take note. If this is something you're gonna go do, and it's calling for a lot of rain, yeah, don't bother. Wait for the weather to be nice. Why that is, I don't know, but that's what I'm told.
One of the greatest blunders of researchers who try to have some kind of interaction with a Sasquatch is that they are not scientifically gathering data. The documenting of information might be the one action that actually interests mainstream scientists. Without it, someone's word or going on anecdotal references is not going to convince anyone that all of this is anything more than delusional nonsense.
And that's an important point as well. The documenting of data, the keeping of data, that's changed over the last 10 years. I think people saw that, with the rise of the Finding Bigfoot series and all of the silliness and reality TVs and nonsense that's out there, Expedition Bigfoot, all these reality shows that just, have to come up with stories to keep you entertained. Nobody's collecting any data or making any notes. But people who are really into this, totally drank the Kool-Aid, they are keeping data. It's really, and it's in that, when you want to win a case in court, show up with a lot of data points in your favor. So same thing here.
One exception is the Olympic Project in Washington State. For the past 7 years, they've been collecting data based on in-depth field research. The Olympic Project is an association of researchers, anthropologists, investigators, biologists, and trackers committed to documenting evidence of Sasquatch through scientific methods. Through comprehensive habitat study, DNA analysis, and game camera deployment, their goal is to obtain as much information and empirical evidence as they can, with the hopes of one day achieving actual species verification.
I forgot about that, highlighting the work that they do. There's a couple of other individuals like that, as well as the Bigfoot Mapping Project and so on. I've got to reach out to and talk with to see where they're at nowadays when it comes to when I go and make my film, The Question of Bigfoot, just to see if they've kept up the tracking and the data collection.
Even with 50 different camera setups, we got nothing all night, which doesn't prove or disprove anything. I've been told that I'm fiercely determined. Well, then I'll use my determination to get to the truth. Out here. Big hairy monsters don't scare me, and no one group of Bigfoot advocates or naysayers will make me their poster boy. I'll stand in the line of fire and turn this into a race for truth between me and Sasquatch.
Interesting that I put that in I write my own narration, and so I wrote that in there and put that in. And I think it was around this time I was getting tired of the Bigfoot researcher community and those, this always gets me some hate mail. So here for the haters, the crazies. And I explained it in a podcast and said, look, what I mean is those people who slam their fists on the counter and say, you have to come out with me. I'm the only one who knows what they really are. It's that kind of crazy, and I just, I got wind of that early, and I'm not interested in it. I'd rather talk to people who are, mild-mannered and have measured responses to things, intelligent individuals like Jeff Meldrum, or David Politis, or field researchers who are boots on the ground like a Bigfoot Stacy, and I'm leaving out a bunch of really cool people. But that's who I'm more interested in speaking with, and we'll continue to do so.
Where I stand in all of this, I stand right on the fence between skepticism and acceptance. trying to expose both worlds, not to debunk them or slam them or bring them down, but to say, look, let's look at everything honestly. It's truth that we need here.
Yeah, so this is why I'm doing this talk to camera. I remember that's what was going on. I was getting to this place during the year of making this documentary series where I was like, what in the hell is going on with these people? It's kind of like that, you know. I was so glad to meet people like Jeff Stewart and other individuals who were, again, you know, critical thinkers. But nonetheless, there was so much that I was learning. At one point, I was like, man, this series should be about people who research Bigfoot, not about Bigfoot. Of course, I don't want to make that series, but it very well could have been. And that is a tricky one to navigate, you know, dealing with the community that is the Bigfoot community, as they call it, quote unquote.
I'm searching for the truth of this subject matter. The phenomenon of Bigfoot becomes being just as much about all of the characters within this scale that are researching it as it does about Bigfoot itself. And I think that's actually unfortunate, because then the focus is taken off the subject matter and put onto the people who are out there messing with it. Bigfoot is absolutely a contradiction. It's a 10-foot monster that we can't find. You know, advocates are looking at markings on trees and in the ground, and they're simply wanting an answer. And it's right to want an answer to what these different things are, what this phenomenon is all about. Those are good questions to ask. Why not? It's not about unicorns or leprechauns anymore. Unicorns don't leave tracks in the ground. Leprechauns don't leave blood on the trees and hair samples. But Bigfoot does. Science needs to take a good look at that and question it as well, in a real way, with real science. We need a combination of empirical science and evidence-based science.
That's what led me to making this series in the first place, because unfortunately, what killed it, and I'm always dissing on finding Bigfoot, I know that, and I love the town hall, by the way, town halls were cool. It was reality television. Reality TV destroyed this subject matter before it had a chance to find a place in the psyche of biological researchers. You know, that to me is, that's maybe oversimplifying it, but I stand by that, you know, unfortunately, the rise of reality TV, well, it ruined a lot of things, in my opinion. Obviously, I'm not a fan, am I? Not hard to tell that, but definitely in this subject matter. That's why I made this series. I thought, well, let's make a serious series about this phenomenon. And I got to 10 shows in making this series, and it wasn't enough, really. But I had to let some time go by, and that's why I'm making the question of Bigfoot next.
But the evidence has to be scrutinized in a very tough fashion. The subject of study is legitimate, because if it's all mythological, where did the mythology come from? What's it mean? In the end, Bigfoot symbolizes the power of nature. It's kind of like the eco-messiah. It's like the ultimate ambassador for green spirituality. If Bigfoot survives, nature survives.
Every myth reveals a truth about the culture
And if nature survives, we survive.
that created it. What does Sasquatch reveal about us? After a couple of uneventful days trying...
You can tell even within my narration where my mind was starting to go with making this series. I was getting into like, whoa, I'm having to think about things I didn't think I was. I truly thought I was just going to try and see if I can get serious evidence of a bipedal relic, hominid, whatever, out there. And then, you know, once we brought spirituality and what people would consider paranormal and all this other stuff into it, it was like, oh, this is getting crazy. What am I going to do with this now? Kind of thing. And I'm still trying to figure that out.
Out all the stealth surveillance equipment in East Texas near the Louisiana border, I've opted to move to another area. A location where there are similar stories to the ones in Texas. But in some of these stories, the Bigfoot encounters are less than benign and sometimes even dangerous. I've often boasted that where I'm headed is in the top 3 of the most beautiful places on the planet. Yet behind the beauty lies a dark secret. Legends of Bigfoot encounters that end fatally for the humans involved. Through all my searching for Sasquatch, a handful of places stand out as more dangerous than the others. Oregon is one, and also here, just south of the Uinta region of Utah, where the Shoshone have a name for it too. Sopitz, meaning cannibal giant.
There's something different out here. Some odd things up here happen. In fact, right here, we've had sounds that's just, you can't explain. A lot of times, like a baby crying, and screams that just make the hair stand up on your head, you know. It ain't really a growl, but it's different, you know. If one of the calves, somebody mutilated it, cut its ears off, its eyes out, and part of the back of its head, and then they went into the hind end and to cut that out. There was no blood around it, but the way it was mutilated, it was almost surgically. You know, what I can't see, I have a hard time believing. But I know there's something there. And it's got me, I'm a lot more leery when I go out. I mean, really leery.
Wally's one of those individuals that, you know, you're filming him for this interview, and you just, as a filmmaker, you're like, oh my God, he's giving me gold. This is so good. Because he was just so, he had a wonderful human being, he had a wonderful tone of voice, and a wonderful cadence and way of speaking. And as a filmmaker, you're like, oh, this is really good stuff here.
This particular canyon, a local ranchers figure is haunted. Hear ungodly screams is the way they describe it. Freaks a lot of people out. It's just up here, rock paintings. There's elk, deer, but there's also strange looking creatures too, strange, larger people. You can see here, things got horns and pretty large feet. You know, how this creature is depicted in native lore and how it relates to Sasquatch or Bigfoot, you've got to recognize that there are 1,000-year-old rock paintings spread throughout North America that depict large, hairy, upright walking human beings. See, I freaked myself out. That's just a fly buzzing, but it echoed in the rocks here. Oh, brother. They are depicted right alongside of normal animals: wolf, raven, eagle, you name it, bear, coyote. So something has been going on here for thousands of years, long before we got here and long before someone coined the phrase Bigfoot.
For example, called Sabe in the northern Manitoba, they have a belief system that celebrates these certain animals in a sort of a 7 different, I think it's 7, maybe it's 11, different animals, you know, representing courage and wisdom and so on. And they're all animals that you're familiar with: a wolf, a bear, a fox, a beaver. And just in there, not given any kind of special position, but just in there is Sabe, Bigfoot. And it's just in there as part of the belief system. Nothing special. And interestingly, it represents honesty. And those are the things, when you start connecting this to the indigenous cultures, the First Nation cultures of Canada and so on, where, you know, why wouldn't they make a distinction? Why wouldn't it be like a thunderbird, you know, or something like that? Why is it given no extra distinction, but it's just simply popped in amongst wolves and bears as yet just another creature, or wild man, as they might call it, of the forest, representing some kind of spiritual component to their life? Sure, that's fine, that representation, but why is it just kind of thrown in there? If it was mythological, then why wouldn't the other animals also have some? There should be a thunderbird in there, or a dragon, or a whatever, you know, something. Don't get me going on. Nobody start talking about dragons now. Just saying, why wouldn't the wheel be filled with other mythological creatures if Sabe, Bigfoot, was also just mythology? Why is it included in nothing but actual animals that we know from natural history exist? Interesting question.
I want to find out what's going on here. The scary stories don't unnerve me one bit, and I found an ally in Kelly Shaw, a man with a family history of Bigfoot encounters.
I think I probably brought that narrative, the scary stories don't unnerve me. I think I probably stole that from Jeremiah Johnson. You know, scary stories of the mountains didn't keep him away or something like that. I can't remember what it is. Still, best movie of all time if you've never seen it. Stop this director's commentary and go watch Jeremiah Johnson, then come back and see me. Another cool guy here, Kelly Shaw, really nice individual.
Like me, he's just searching for the truth of the matter here in Utah. I've jumped from Texas to Utah in my search for Sasquatch.
This spot here is an area where my guide here, Kelly Shaw, they casted a massive track and had what he called bluff charges. Bigfoot breaking branches just up in behind them, just up in here. You see any kind of track in this?
That's the exact spot we dug up that cast last year. That's the exact spot that you're
so that's
pointing
what that
out.
is. That's the divot.
That's the divot from us digging it up. That's exactly where it was at.
Wow.
And I was just in shock when we saw this one. I mean,
Right.
it was
I can see, yeah.
Because anytime I find a Bigfoot footprint, I'm always trying to blame it on something else. You know, is this a couple of cows or elk or a moose double, triple stepping? And I couldn't explain it away. I had to accept that it was a Bigfoot footprint. A lot of the ranchers think all these canyons around here are haunted. I, for one, think that Bigfoot activity is being mistaken for haunting, because some of the screams are very haunting, like a woman in distress, the whoops, the wood knocks.
And Kelly makes a really great point there. You know, as well, take a look at place names. You want to figure out, say, where the hot spots are. You know, you look at these historical place names: Ape Valley, Ape Canyon, you know, Devil's Bluff. Like a lot of those place names, you go back, well, why was it called that? And you find out it was called that because, you know, it was said that early loggers saw, you know, a group of apes on the shore of the lake, you know, so they called this Ape Canyon. Just, you know, Gorilla Lake or whatever. That mean, you'd be blown away at how common that is.
And then when you get an intimidation display, and it's hard to call it a display because they don't actually show themselves, but it's pretty intimidating when they rush the tree line and keep pacing back and forth, stomping and snapping stuff off.
Kelly's version of an intimidation display sounds exactly like what I experienced in Alaska many years earlier.
How big were the footprints?
They were 17 inches long by almost 8 inches wide. This was like the narrowest part of the snow.
Okay.
And you could tell they stayed in the dry spot, and it crossed kind of like a linebacker sidestepping across the snow.
Okay.
And then headed off that direction. We found a Bigfoot that was sidestepping right here. He's doing this little shuffle sidestep. I've heard of him doing this. That is just a massive
You can
footprint.
see the toes.
Yes. And you can see my fresh footprint right next to it. It's a very warm day today. The snow's melting quick. So it must have made this when the snow was a little bit colder.
Kelly wouldn't normally camp out in the research area, especially not alone. So naturally, that's what I'm going to get him to do with me.
We're going to set up in a spot here that the elk like to bed down, and all of this area where we are right now is just, they've found this has been riddled with Sasquatch tracks, big ones, 19-inch, 17-inch, 14-inch. This branch here, this has got that whole sort of break, twist thing going on, and this happened during the nice season. It didn't happen during snow load or anything like that. This was done, very physically done, in between treks that the team had made coming into here. Snapped and twisted and pulled down. So we're camping just up here. I've got the stealth tent this time, and then about 75 yards this way is another depression area where they call Bigfoot Highway, where they got an awful lot of tracks. So we'll let the dark come in and see what happens, because apparently we are smack dab in the middle of the hot zone.
I can't just expect an encounter anywhere the claim to be hotspots are key to having any kind of interaction.
So right now I'm halfway between where we are sleeping tonight and what they call Bigfoot Highway down there. What I want to do is, I've got Kelly's permission to test out one of these pheromone chips. These are the ones that it's a combination of gorilla sex pheromone and human sex pheromone, apparently. Whatever that means, I don't know, but it stinks. So let's find out what happens.
Honestly, I have no idea about the whole pheromone thing, but they sell these. It could be a total scam. They do stink. If anybody knows where those pheromone chips come from, how they're made, please post, put a comment below about it, because I don't have a clue. I was just like, okay, these are supposed to be pheromone chips I can use to bring in Sasquatch. All right, let's give it a try.
Oh, phew. Ah, stinks. Well, let's just make it obvious, shall we? So something else I want to do is kind of create almost like a camera fence. I don't have a lot of the trail cams, but if I put the camera here facing this way, they won't like to come past the cameras, so I'm told. So if they don't like to come past the camera, they're either going to have to go across there or across there, which in a way would be better for them because it gives them the height advantage. They're up above us. They come along here, they're down below us, and all reports are they don't normally do that unless they feel super comfortable or aggressive. Maybe that gives you something to worry about. Let's put this guy up, though. All right, so strung up along the way, I've got 4 trail cams.
I'm just going to interrupt myself and say that, so this area, which is just near Uinta, Utah, and Southern Oregon sort of have, I believe they have the most anecdotally related occurrences of aggressive behavior, scary shit.
All right, one here, this one, and they're all, I've kept them obvious, they're just out in the open. And it's got one here. This one is pointing to this spot right here, and I've hammered in a pheromone chip there. And then further down, there's another camera also pointing in this direction. Then we're camping. Then there's a camera pointing in this direction, pheromone chip further down, and then another camera pointing in this direction. So all the cameras pointing in one direction like a camera fence. You know, so anything that comes along here will get it. Anything that comes along that's savvy to cameras will be forced to go up behind the cameras, which is all in behind us, all where we are right here. And as far as the pheromone chip goes, I haven't got a clue. It's really just trying anything to see what could happen. Sun's creeping its way up to the top of the hills, so it's gonna be dark soon.
I've been told that having teenagers or kids around can increase the chances of an encounter with Sasquatch.
The deal is that I'm set up in camp with Kelly Shaw. He's got his tent, I've got mine. In fact, I did a little change this time, just to shift things up, see if anything happens. I just heard like a whoop, whoop, up there. Anyway, what I was gonna say was I brought my son. Get a week off school and use them as Bigfoot bait. See if they come in, because there's a teenage boy hanging.
Logan was always game. One thing, I mean, yeah, of course, I absolutely adore my son and my daughter. And but yeah, Logan was always, he's like, yeah, you're gonna take me out of school, or take me, you know, we're gonna go here, we're gonna go there. And even when he was really young, you know, taking him off to Fiji and Madagascar. And so I was like, you want to come do a Bigfoot thing with me? I need to use you as bait. He's like, yeah, whatever, Dad. And so made it fun.
And about, you know, the thing about a situation like this and why I like working with Kelly is he's not out to change the world. He's just simply out looking for answers to his own experiences, of which he's had many, and his family. He comes from a generation of people who've had Bigfoot sightings. So he's out here just to prove it to himself, nobody else. In Kelly's case, he's seen things. He's seen darting, upright, furred creatures, you know, walking these hills. But he hasn't had a close-up visual encounter, and neither have I. He's a little further along the road than I am as far as being sure that they're here. He's still not 100% sure, and that's why he continues in his search. This is a great spot. Just
going to pause it right here. Hey, Luke, show everybody, here's some swag. If you guys are interested, I'm going to go and top up my red, and I'll be right back, and we'll keep watching this. But yeah, Luke, show them the swag, hawking some swag for you guys. But then also show them the second version of the Question of Bigfoot promo. See you guys in a second. I don't really like hawking merchandise and swag, but you guys do ask all the time where you can get certain items. For example, check this out, Hennessy hammock. I put a lot of time and effort into designing this hammock with Hennessy. It's their top hammock. It's an amazing, beautiful, comfortable hammock to enjoy for all of your adventures out there, so just check it out. It's got a full-size tarp, which is a big thing for me. It's got insulation, and I love it. So I've got the Hennessy hammocks. Of course, for years I've been in a phenomenal relationship with Hella of Norway, Hella Knives. And this is our signature knife, of course, the Tamagami. These knives are handmade. In fact, I've been there to this very ancient factory where I don't know how many, it's well over 100 years that they've been operating, and every single handle is handmade. All of the grinding, everything is done by hand. And these knives are absolutely beautiful. I also now have a brand new relationship, and you will see these items, new forging tools that I'm designing with LT Wright Knives out of Ohio. And also, Chef Paul Rogalski of Wild Harvest has the signature Chef Paul Rogalski kitchen knife collection. Those are a big thrill to me, to have these beautiful items that we spent years designing, and I still have them available for you. However, if you want to go more the route of just enjoying the Survivorman legacy, if you will, then of course, go to my website, lestroud.ca, go to the shop page. Right there, you've got everything. All the swag, all the merch, such as my manual on survival. This is if you want to get into survival. This book is meant to be a way to walk you through step by step, because I deal a lot more with concepts than I do with specifics, because that's really important. Once you understand the concepts of fire by friction, for example, you can do it depending on where you are, because I can't give you the advice on how to do it here in Canada and hope that it's also going to work down in the jungle. Things are different. So I've always been very proud of this book, Survive. So that is my survival manual. Also, if you weren't aware, I've got the book Will to Live. I wrote this book it's kind of for a lot of fun. I took my 10 favorite survival stories, such as Chris McCandless Into the Wild or the Robertson family and the life raft, and I basically dissect them with this book. I tear apart the story, I go through everything, and I even give them a little bit of a grade on how I thought they did. So I really enjoyed writing this book. It's a real easy read, it's a fast read, but I think there's a lot of insight there for you into all of these different examples of people who have either survived or perished. Speaking of books, so honored, so thrilled, so proud that Wild Outside, my first children's book, has won the Yellow Cedar Award, Best Nonfiction Children's Book in Canada for ages 7 to 14. I tell stories from Survivorman, lessons learned during those expeditions and adventures, and there are even activities they can do in the out of doors. So there you go. My new book, my children's book, Wild Outside, Around the World with Survivorman, has just won the Yellow Cedar Award, and I'm up for another award yet. And in keeping with stuff that's going on right now, we are also up for an award for our Season 1 recipe book from the series Wild Harvest. And if you've never caught the series Wild Harvest, check this out.
Hey Les! Gotta watch the whales! Oh my gosh! This perhaps is the most incredible kitchen scenario I've ever had.
Can you create a dish where the domestic ingredients don't overshadow the wild ingredients?
This dish is a showcase of how great these foraged ingredients come together.
It's the best when it's its own flavor. When you're making something with a wild edible, you're nailing it and not losing the wild flavor. Tell me that doesn't look awesome. 2 seasons right now, 26 episodes. In the United States, it's on PBS stations. You can also get it on this YouTube channel. In Canada, Cottage Life TV. In Sweden and Norway, on Matt Cannelin. It's on National Geographic Asia, which includes China and India. So my Wild Harvest series is playing around the world now, and we, with every single season, create a recipe book based on the recipes that we show you in the actual shows themselves. So that's Wild Harvest. And of course, if you want the DVD, you can get that on this website as well, lesstroud.ca. And let's not forget too, that I'm a musician. The CDs themselves are available on the website. The next release will be the re-release of the Mother Earth album on vinyl. But go on Spotify, Apple Music, wherever you listen to music, or on my website. You can go to the shop page, you can pick up all of my CDs. So this is the last one. This is my 20th anniversary selection. Check it out. Every film I've ever made, 76 films in all of the Survivorman, Bigfoot, Beyond Survival, music documentaries, one-off films such as the award-winning La Loche about the school shooting up in Canada and a healing canoe trip. This is my 20th anniversary, 76 films. And people that have picked this up have raved about it. And I'm really proud that I can say I've got 20 years of anything, to be honest with you. That's available for you as well on that Les Stroud shop page. Okay, that's me hawking my stuff. Back to the video. Back in 2014, I began work on a 10-part documentary series on the subject of Bigfoot. It took me places I did not expect to go, and it gave me a perspective I did not expect to have.
We come up the creek, Roger in front of me, come around this big downfall tree, and the creature was standing just about 30 or 40 feet on the other side of the creek. My first thought was, yeah, these things really do exist. And I just wanted to see this thing again, you know, to make sure I knew what I was seeing.
Either they're telling the truth, or it's a hoax. There's no in between. It's one or the other.
Join me and help me to answer the litany of questions hanging over the phenomenon known as Bigfoot. My new documentary film, The Question of Bigfoot, will attempt to answer the skeptics' burning question. Are they real or are they not? I can't do this without you. So take a look at all of the rewards within this Kickstarter campaign and help me to produce The Question of Bigfoot. Well, like I said, I sure hope you guys join me on my journey into the making of The Question of Bigfoot. Let's keep watching the original series, though.
It looks like if you could, you know, your mind's eye, and look up there, you just think, oh yeah, you see something up there. A lot of wishful thinking to think you're gonna look up there and see some 8-foot tall, hairy guy running down the hill. Of course, if he was running towards you, then I don't know how long I'd stay there and watch him.
If this is a game, then it's one that gets us out in the wilderness connecting with nature. If interest in Sasquatch is getting people out into the forest during an era when it would seem that interest in hunting and fishing and hiking is at a low, then so be it. In this way, Bigfoot proves out its reputation for being an advocate for nature, for being a symbol of our own connectedness to the earth. And so, in the absence of the city noises, Kelly, Logan, and I settle into the forested area of Utah as night falls, otherwise known as the witching hour for Sasquatch.
So we've got a couple of those glow sticks that you crack, and then they stay lit for a few hours. And we're gonna pop them inside our empty drinking bottles. We're gonna put one out here by Pheromone chip. And this Pheromone chip has a camera on it, so I'm just gonna leave it sitting.
You know, watching this stuff again just really does get me excited for getting back out there. I was debating on whether or not for The Question of Bigfoot I would include, you know, going back out at all, you know, or if I would just approach it more just really collating all of the questions and answers and stuff. But I'm kind of excited to do that. And so then it becomes a matter of, well, where should I go? You know, so many places I experienced. I'm imagining I would go for the most profound experiences that I had is where I would go. Some of those were pretty difficult to get to, though. So I'm excited about the thought of creating this new film and getting back out there.
Logan and I are holding up in one tent, and then a little ways away, Kelly Shaw is in his tent. We keep our ears wide open while we sleep tonight.
This is the morning we wake up to. I myself didn't hear anything last night, and neither did Kelly. Logan actually said he woke up in the middle of the night and heard growling up in this area, up in here.
I really should take Logan on all of my ventures because he actually seems to always have something that goes on around him, including at our little cabin way up in Temagami, that I just sleep right through. So maybe he's good Bigfoot bait.
He said he knew it wasn't me because I was right beside him, and he knew it wasn't Kelly. Kelly was over on the other side, and just heard like that 2 or 3 times, he said, and that was it. Other than that, no real action into the night.
We were visited during the night by this mountain lion caught on Kelly's trail cam. He came within a few feet of our tent.
I'm gonna hike around these hills for the day and into the night. Let the night fall on us. See if we stir up anything.
That's a big cat. One thing I will say, though, the cat's not walking around growling. That's not what mountain lions do. They don't just walk around and growl for no reason. You know, I've been face to face with a mountain lion here in Oregon, and it was actually a beautiful, beautiful experience. I mean, 15 feet away, face to face, just that cat and me. And I was off hiking long before I got dogs. And a gorgeous creature, but they don't just growl. They don't just hang around and growl. Now, at least for the most part, they don't. Anyway, I mean, I remember a jaguar growling in the Amazon jungle.
Once I got into camp, my Waorani guides told me that it's absolutely certain that the jaguar would have followed me all the way into camp on the trail. And not only that, but there were some women that were also out on another trail coming in, and they had a jaguar following them. They didn't have a flashlight, and they made double time to get here in here as quickly as possible. Right now, we've got a jaguar just on the other side of this reed wall, and he's pacing the village. And we can hear him. One of the crew member woke up and said, listen, you could hear a low moan. Glad I came in.
But it was absolutely on the hunt. So, I don't know. But you know what? I trust my son. If he says he heard it, he heard it.
In both Texas and here in Utah, I'm seeing the signs, hearing about the evidence, but I'm not feeling any closer to a real experience. I'll keep searching, trying anything.
All right, so we've stopped, and the boys have headed back on the trail. I'm going to give them a good bit of distance between me and them, maybe 15, 20 minutes. I'll wait here. Still on my own. I want to walk back alone. You know, turn myself into bait, you know, make myself conspicuous. Looks like a mule deer. So, something caught and ate a mule deer here. Could have been bear, could have been human. Could have just died. Old age, but his bones have been picked at. So now this has tooth marks that I know researchers have been looking for. The tooth marks that look like human teeth, not fangs. A definite teeth mark on this. I think I'll take this back.
These are the kinds of research details that are starting to make a difference scientifically. Once you collect the data and you rule out death by wolf, bear, human, or mountain lion, you start to narrow down the answers to the questions of what is going on out here. Whether or not one of those answers leads to Sasquatch is another story.
That's what you had seen when you first got here, was more all sort of green?
We seen it right after it had been made. It looked like everything was really fresh, and you could still smell the pine from, the fresh snaps.
Right, okay.
So this is all about, nests or structures or shelters or so on. And I've seen lots and lots of photographs of these. It's part of me, it's a hard time not remembering or thinking about the fact that really ever since survival became very popular on television, from Survivorman forward, people are out making shelters in the woods. I mean, you see them all the time now. And I'm not going to just say, oh, that must be a Sasquatch because look at the shelter. It's like, no, it's teenagers sort of thing. So it's like a matter of evidence that exists out there is now in a state of almost always being tampered with unless you go very remote, because it's so easy to make films. You can make costumes now. You can do a lot. You can do prints. You can do all kinds of fakery now that you couldn't do 50 years ago. You couldn't do when Roger Patterson made his film, but you can now. And it's hard to avoid that in your mind when you're looking at structures and tree breaks and footprints and so on.
Okay, so this spot here, when Kelly and his team were researching this area earlier, it was during the summer, so snow load is ruled out.
And you can see right up at the top, you've got branches broken off. I mean,
And nothing broke them off. There's no, cliff rocks that have come down or super large tree that knocked them down.
and the ones beneath them are not broken off, so that's really odd.
Down here, all gathered together like this, and when they were here, you could still smell the evergreen boughs, sort of bedding sites that people are claiming belong to Sasquatch.
When one researcher takes you to a so-called tree structure, it's easy to be skeptical. But when they start showing up in wilderness everywhere, it becomes a curious find indeed.
Same
thing again. What you've got happening is they're almost like woven at the top.
The bottoms are not root structures. There's no root structures at the bottom yet. They're still shoved down about 6 inches into the dirt and lined up in this strange manner now. Get to see these sort of structures in different places. This is the first time I've seen them sort of like this. Either way, this is a deliberate structure.
Now, sometimes these poles they're really too heavy for a human being to be making the structure. But then you have to ask, well, what would it even be for? It's clearly not shelter. So what is the point of it? Is it nonverbal communication, like markings sort of thing? Well, I'm going to, I'll lay the trees like this, and that actually is a form of communication to another Sasquatch. I don't know. But there's certainly a lot of them. And more so than you can just attribute to a bunch of teenagers doing stuff. There's no, teenagers are lazy anyway. They're just not going to go into this, They kind of defy a reason for being, and yet there they are in these many locations and remotely. And so they're intriguing at the very least.
These didn't grow like this, and they didn't fall here like this, and it's not snow load. None of those elements will do this. This is more deliberate. That doesn't say what it is. It just says what it isn't.
The meaning of these structures is really just complete conjecture. It's hard to figure out and know why they're put like this. So why are they here? And if they are indeed done by a species claimed to be Sasquatch, Bigfoot, then what's their meaning? Territorial? Are they marking something? Are they sending a message? These structures are popping up all over the place. What's going to happen now is we're going to have to be careful that humans aren't doing the structures, and that's where it's going to start getting confusing. So it's going to be about trying to discern the jokes and the hoaxes from the real deal. What I've decided to do is a bit of a night hike up a different hollow here. This is one of the main ones that ranchers think are haunted. They hear quote-unquote ungodly screams coming out of this place. Naturally, that has my interest piqued, my curiosity.
maybe I'm just stupid, but I just have this thought that, if you just go with your tongue firmly planted in your cheek and just go, yeah, whatever, bring it on. Somehow that makes me feel like I'll be safe. But my goal and mission often has been to demystify. With Survivorman and teaching survival, I wanted to demystify survival in the wilderness and just make it accessible for everybody. Same thing with a subject matter like this. Let's demystify stuff. And often the only way for me to do that is to have the cojones and go into somewhere that people say is haunted and scary and spooky, and go there by myself and say, well, okay, I'll go check it out and see what happens.
Set on fire here, so I'm gonna walk up it 4 ways. Walk it in the nighttime.
I'll go a mile or two up the hollow and wait for the dark to come in. I'll keep facing this search head on until I experience an encounter. With what? Who knows? But I'll be ready.
Seems sufficiently creepy with the dusk coming in, so I'm going to wait it out. Wait for it to get dark. And then a couple miles in, so I'll wait for it to get dark, and then I'll slowly make my way out.
It's kind of I like this as a technique. I did it in the Smoky Mountains of Tennessee, where I had a crazy experience, which you'd have to watch the director's commentary to see what that was. But I do like it as a technique. Go all the way in, wait for dark to settle in, stay there till maybe midnight or well past, and then walk out. It just seems to me like the right thing to do.
A lot of this seems to be about going into a spot, trying to stir something up, and then seeing what happens. A lot of the stories come from that. People go on a basic hike, and they walk out, and on the way out, they start getting hassled. Rocks thrown at them, tree branches thrown at them, something shadowing them 50, 60 yards away in the bush, just out of sight, that can throw rocks. All the way to the parking lot, all the way to their car. That story repeats itself all over North America. Let's see if something follows me out of this haunted canyon. It's Haunted Hollow, I guess. That sounds cooler anyway. The Haunted Hollow.
What throws rocks out of the bush at people? What screams in the night? What are thousands of people seeing that is over 8 feet tall with massive shoulders, covered in hair, not fur, and runs upright like a large human? These questions persist, regardless of the couch skeptics.
When I walk, all I hear are the crunch of my boots on the snow. I have to stop and listen. And this is the tricky part, sometimes you're sleeping in the bush at night, and I'm laying there and I'm trying to listen to the sound, trying to see if I hear something, and then, oh, I hear something all of a sudden. What's happening is, you know what I'm hearing? I kid you not, I'm hearing my beard rub on my coat. But if I'm half asleep and I hear that, it sounds like something moving the bushes 200 yards away. Easy to fool yourself out here. It's getting dark enough. I'm gonna need to put on my headlamp soon. Can't really see where I'm walking at this point.
And just for clarity, yes, I had to manipulate 2 cameras to get all of this shot. Put a camera down, turn on the night vision, go back, do my talk to camera. I had to, it's just like filming Survivorman. I had to do all of that.
I'm not really sure if a headlamp will help to attract something to me. Get a Sasquatch interested in me, if they exist. Or scare things away. Or let a mountain lion know exactly where he needs to pounce on me. Seems everywhere I go has its own set of crazy stories. Running the gamut of seeing big hairy apes to alien abductions out here in the wilderness. The wilderness is a place I like to call home, so I think what I'll do is I'll keep coming out here. I'm comfortable out here, alone, and in deep and dark, in remote places. If there's something going on out here, I'd like to see it.
And to be clear, when it comes to the making of the new film, The Question of Bigfoot, I'm not going to be looking for aliens. I'm looking for answers about this phenomenon. Maybe that'll lead me to aliens. I don't know. But I'm not going with that focus. I'm still looking at cold, hard facts and reality, or will be, for the entirety of that movie.
I ain't quitting yet. Let's see what I can find.
Jeff Stewart of Texas knows what he saw. Kelly Shaw believes his father and his father before that. Wally is like me. He's heard some strange things out here. So go ahead and sit on the couch and cry out, skeptic. You're not out here. This is where the action is. Who knows? Maybe someday something big and hairy will throw a rock at me, and I'll get a glimpse at whatever it is that's causing all the fuss. And then I'll finally have my answer. Whatever that answer might be.
All right, let's leave it right there. So there you go, guys. I know there's a couple more films for me to look at yet for the Survivorman Bigfoot series, and I will do them very, very soon. I wanted to get this one done up quickly and get it out to you. And as I said, if you are inclined, join me on the journey of the making of The Question of Bigfoot by joining the Kickstarter campaign, kickstarter.com, search The Question of Bigfoot, and if you pledge $1, you're a part of it. From that all the way up to the big ticket items of coming out on an expedition. So, till next time, guys. See you soon. Oh, the classic hand to the camera.